The morning alarm echoed through the metal corridors of Kepler 7 station. Sarah Chen pulled on her training uniform and checked the time. Combat practice started in 20 minutes. She walked through the hallways, passing other cadets from different worlds. The Velthari were tall and moved like dancers. The Kreks were short but built like rocks. The Zephyrians floated slightly above the ground. Sarah was human. She looked ordinary compared to the others. The training hall was huge. High ceilings stretched above padded floors. Weapons lined the walls. Cadets gathered in groups talking in their native languages. The universal translator in Sarah's ear made sense of most conversations. "Today we practice hand-to-hand combat," announced Instructor Vex. The old Kreks had scars covering his gray skin. "You will face opponents from different species. Learn their strengths. Find their weaknesses." Sarah stretched her arms and legs. Around her, alien cadets prepared in their own ways. The Velthari moved in flowing motions. The Kreks hit practice pads with their rock-hard fists. The Zephyrians practiced floating kicks. "First demonstration," Instructor Vex called out. "Commander Zixtel will show proper striking technique." Heads turned toward the tall Velthari officer. Zixtel stood 7 feet high with blue-gray skin and forearms. His movements were smooth and deadly. Other cadets stepped back to give him space. "I need a volunteer," Zixtel said. His voice was deep and confident. His eyes scanned the room and stopped on Sarah. "The human will do." Sarah felt the attention of every cadet focus on her. She walked to the center of the mat. Zixtel looked down at her with what might have been a smile. Velthari expressions were hard to read. "Humans are new to the galaxy," Zixtel announced to the watching cadets. "They lack the natural advantages of older species. This demonstration will show the difference between evolved beings and—" He paused. "Newer ones." Sarah said nothing. She took a basic defensive stance. "Begin when ready," Instructor Vex said. Zixtel moved without warning. His top right arm shot forward in a strike aimed at Sarah's chest. The blow was fast and precise. It carried enough force to knock a human backward and leave them gasping. Sarah's hand moved. Her fingers wrapped around Zixtel's wrist just before impact. The commander's strike stopped completely. The training hall went silent. Zixtel's four eyes widened. His arm strained against Sarah's grip, but she held firm. She was not just blocking his attack. She was controlling it. Sarah looked up at the tall alien officer. Her expression was calm. Then she smiled. It was not a mocking smile or an angry one. It was the kind of smile a teacher might give a student who asked a good question. "Next lesson," she said quietly. She released his wrist and stepped back. Zixtel stared at his hand, then at Sarah, then at his hand again. Around them, cadets whispered in dozens of languages. The translators buzzed with excited chatter. "How did she do that? Did you see how fast she moved? Humans are stronger than they look." "No way. Velthari are 3 times stronger than humans." Instructor Vex stepped forward. His scarred face showed no emotion, but his eyes glinted with interest. "Technique over strength," he said loudly. "Good demonstration. Both of you. Return to your groups." Sarah walked back to where the human cadets stood. There were only 12 humans in the entire academy. They clustered together for support in a place filled with beings who could fly, lift massive weights, or move faster than human eyes could follow. "How did you do that?" whispered Marcus, another human cadet. "I watched his shoulder," Sarah replied. "He telegraphed the strike. But he's so much stronger. Strength does not matter if you redirect it." Across the training hall, Zixtel stood with a group of Velthari cadets. They spoke in rapid musical tones. Their forearms gestured as they talked. Sarah caught fragments through her translator. "Impossible. Lucky grab. Humans are tricky. Challenge her properly." Zixtel was not listening to his friends. He kept staring at Sarah. His expression had changed from confident superiority to puzzled concentration. The rest of the training session continued with pair exercises. Sarah worked with different partners. She faced a Kreks cadet named Thorm, whose punches could dent metal. Sarah dodged and weaved, never trying to block directly. She waited for openings and tagged him with light touches that would have been killing blows with a real weapon. She sparred with a Zephyrian called Wisp, who moved like wind. Sarah could not match the alien's speed, but she predicted movement patterns. She was there waiting when Wisp arrived. With each match, more cadets stopped their own practice to watch. The human who had stopped Commander Zixtel was doing things that should not be possible. "She fights like she knows what we will do before we do it." Thorm rumbled to his friends. Humans have good reflexes, Wisp agreed. But this is different. She thinks 3 moves ahead. Near the end of the session, Sarah noticed Zixtel watching her carefully. He studied her footwork, her timing, her breathing. When their eyes met across the training hall, he did not look away. Instructor Vex called for attention. Today's lesson is complete. Remember what you learned. Strength and speed are gifts, but they are not everything. Technique, timing, and intelligence can overcome natural advantages. As cadets filed out of the training hall, Zixtel approached Sarah. Up close, he was even more imposing. His 4 arms could probably tear a human in half. That was an interesting technique, he said. Thank you. Where did you learn it? My grandfather taught me. He studied martial arts on Earth. I have never heard of these martial arts. They are very old. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got good at it. Zixtel's head tilted slightly. Thousands of years of constant warfare? Not constant, but regular enough. We learned to fight bigger, stronger opponents. We had to or we died. And this made you better fighters? Sarah considered the question. It made us different fighters. We learned that every advantage can become a weakness if you know how to use it. What do you mean? Sarah smiled again. The same calm, teaching smile from their encounter. Your strength makes you confident in direct attacks. Your speed makes you trust in quick strikes. But confidence and trust can be predicted. Once I know what you will do, I can be ready for it. Zixtel was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the training hall emptied as other cadets headed to their next classes. You stopped my strike easily, he said finally. Yes. How? You want to know? Yes. Sarah's smile widened slightly. Next lesson. She turned and walked toward the exit, leaving the tall Velthari officer standing alone in the training hall. Zixtel watched her go, his 4 hands slowly clenching and unclenching. For the first time in his military career, Commander Zixtel had met an opponent who made him feel like a student instead of a teacher. The feeling was uncomfortable. It was also fascinating. He decided he needed to learn more about humans. Zixtel could not sleep. He lay in his quarters staring at the ceiling. His 4 arms were spread across the wide bed designed for Velthari anatomy. But his mind was not on comfort. He kept replaying the moment when the human caught his wrist. It should not have been possible. He sat up and activated his personal terminal. The blue holographic display filled the room with soft light. Zixtel began searching the Academy database for information about humans. The files were surprisingly thin. Humans had only joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago. Before that, they were unknown. They came from a small blue planet in an unremarkable star system. No special resources, no advanced technology, no obvious advantages. Physical data showed what Zixtel expected. Humans were weak compared to most species. Average strength ranked them in the bottom quarter of known beings. Their speed was mediocre. Their natural armor was non-existent. They could not fly, breathe underwater for long periods, or survive in hard vacuum. So why had Sarah Chen made him feel helpless? Zixtel dug deeper into the files. He found records of human military history. His 4 eyes widened as he read. Humans had fought wars constantly throughout their development, not just against other species but against each other. The same species fighting itself for resources, territory, and ideas. The records showed weapons development spanning thousands of years. Clubs became swords. Swords became guns. Guns became missiles. Missiles became weapons that could destroy entire planets, all created by humans to fight other humans. Zixtel paused his reading. His own species, the Velthari, had evolved past internal conflict millions of years ago. They fought other species when necessary. But Velthari versus Velthari combat was almost unknown. The idea of constantly fighting your own kind seemed wasteful and primitive, but the results were undeniable. Humans had become incredibly good at warfare. The next day, Zixtel watched Sarah during morning exercises. She ran with the other cadets around the station's outer ring. Her pace was steady but not impressive. Several alien species ran faster, but Sarah never seemed to tire. When others began to slow after the first kilometer, she maintained her rhythm. When Krek's cadets started breathing hard after 3 kilometers, Sarah was still moving smoothly. When Zephyrians began floating more than running after 5 kilometers, Sarah was still going strong. She finished the 10-kilometer run in the middle of the pack. Not first but not last. What caught Zixtal's attention was her condition afterward. Other cadets were exhausted. Sarah looked ready to run another 10 kilometers. During tactical studies class, Zixtal sat where he could observe Sarah. The lesson involved planning attacks on fortified positions. Each species approached the problem differently. Velthari cadets suggested using their natural speed and agility to overwhelm defenses quickly. Krex cadets wanted to use their strength to smash through walls. Zephyrians proposed floating over obstacles. Sarah raised her hand. What if we do not attack the fortification at all? Professor Clicks, a insectoid being with compound eyes, clicked his mandibles. Explain. The fortress is strong because of its walls and weapons, but it needs supplies. Food, water, ammunition, power. What if we cut off those supplies and wait? That could take months, protested a Velthari cadet. Yes, Sarah agreed. But we would not lose anyone in a direct assault. Time costs less than lives. Humans think strangely, whispered a Krex to his friend. After class, Zixtal followed Sarah to the library. She sat at a terminal researching something. Curiosity finally overcame his pride. What are you studying? He asked. Sarah looked up. Hello, Commander. I am reading about Velthari combat techniques. Why? Our sparring session yesterday was educational. I want to understand your fighting style better. Zixtal's pride flared. Planning your next trick? No, planning to learn. She turned the screen so he could see. The display showed ancient Velthari martial arts, forms that emphasized flowing movements and using all four arms in coordination. Your species developed beautiful fighting arts, Sarah said. Very elegant. Very efficient for someone with your natural advantages. You think they are good? I think they are perfect for Velthari physiology. Fast strikes from multiple angles. Overwhelming opponents before they can react. Against most species, this would be decisive. But not against humans? Sarah considered her answer. Humans learned to fight differently because we had to. We were never the strongest or fastest predators on our world. We survived by being adaptable and persistent. You mean stubborn? Sarah laughed. It was a warm sound. Yes, we are very stubborn. We do not give up easily. Zixtal found himself sitting down across from her. Tell me about human martial arts. There are hundreds of different styles. Some focus on strength, others on speed or flexibility. But the best ones share something in common. What? They assume your opponent is bigger and stronger than you. So they teach you to use that strength against them. How? Sarah stood up. May I show you? Zixtal also stood. They moved to an open area between the library stacks. Sarah positioned herself in front of him. Try to grab my shoulders with your upper arms, she said. Zixtal reached out slowly. His two upper hands moved toward her shoulders. Sarah stepped slightly to one side and caught his right wrist with her left hand. At the same time, she placed her right hand on his elbow and pushed. Zixtal found himself turning involuntarily. Sarah had used his own forward motion to spin him around. She could have thrown him to the ground if she wanted. You redirected my movement, he said, impressed despite himself. Yes, I did not fight your strength. I guided it where I wanted it to go. Show me another technique. For the next hour, Sarah demonstrated basic principles of human martial arts. She showed him how to break grips, escape holds, and turn an opponent's force against them. Zixtal was a quick learner. His natural speed and coordination helped him understand the movements. These techniques are clever, he admitted, but they require precise timing. That comes with practice. Humans practice these movements thousands of times until they become automatic. Muscle memory. Exactly. Zixtal paused in his practice. How many hours have you trained? Since I was 6 years old. Maybe 10,000 hours? The number staggered him. Velthari military training was intensive, but it lasted only 2 years. Most of their combat effectiveness came from natural ability. You have been preparing for war since childhood? Not war specifically, but my grandfather believed everyone should know how to protect themselves and others. Even children, especially children. Young humans are very vulnerable. We need years to develop our strength and speed, so we learn technique while we are still growing. That evening, Zixtal researched human childhood development. What he found amazed him. Human children trained for years in various skills. Not just fighting, but games that required strategy, cooperation, and quick thinking. They learned to work in teams, to adapt to changing rules, to compete without destroying each other. It was like watching an entire species prepare for challenges they had not yet faced. The next day in combat training, Zixtal paid attention to all the human cadets, not just Sarah. He noticed patterns he had missed before. Marcus was not as skilled as Sarah, but he never stopped trying. When a Krex cadet knocked him down, Marcus got up and asked to try again. When a Zephyrian cadet moved too fast for him to follow, Marcus studied the movement and adapted his defense. Julia, another human cadet, showed different strengths. She was good at reading body language and predicting attacks. She seemed to know what opponents would do before they did it. David excelled at teamwork. During group exercises, he naturally became a coordinator, helping different species work together despite their varying abilities. All the humans shared certain traits. They were persistent. They learned from mistakes quickly. They adapted their tactics based on their opponents. Most importantly, they seemed to get better with each challenge instead of becoming discouraged. They treat every defeat as education, Zixtal realized. That night, he made a decision. Tomorrow, he would challenge Sarah Chen to a formal combat trial. Not to embarrass her, but to truly test what humans could do. He needed to understand these strange beings who turned weakness into strength and obstacles into opportunities. His pride as a Velthari warrior demanded it. His curiosity as an intelligent being required it. The announcement echoed through the Academy's communication system during morning mealtime. Commander Zixtal, senior Velthari officer, formally challenged Cadet Sarah Chen to a series of combat trials. The dining hall fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human section where Sarah sat with her breakfast. She looked up from her meal and nodded calmly. "I accept," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Excited chatter erupted in dozens of languages. Formal challenges were rare at the Academy. They were usually reserved for serious disputes or matters of honor. What could a Velthari commander want with a human cadet? Word spread quickly through the station. By afternoon, the main training arena was packed with spectators. Cadets from every species crowded the observation galleries. Even some instructors came to watch. Instructor Vex stood in the center of the arena floor. His scarred face was serious as he explained the rules. "This challenge consists of 3 trials," he announced. Trial 1 tests raw strength. Trial 2 tests speed and reflexes. Trial 3 tests tactical thinking and adaptability. He gestured to both participants. Challenger chooses the specific format for each trial. Challenged chooses the conditions and victory requirements. Zixtal stepped forward. His ceremonial combat gear gleamed under the arena lights. Forearms were protected by lightweight armor that allowed full movement. "For the strength trial, I choose weighted combat. We fight while carrying additional mass," Sarah nodded. "I choose the victory condition. First to force their opponent to the ground wins." Technicians brought out weighted vests. Each vest contained 50 kilograms of dense material. For Zixtal's larger frame and natural strength, this was manageable. For Sarah's smaller human build, it would be challenging. They strapped on the vests and took positions on the mat. The weight settled heavily on Sarah's shoulders. She adjusted her stance to accommodate the extra mass. "Begin," Instructor Vex commanded. Zixtal moved forward confidently. The extra weight barely affected his fluid Velthari grace. His forearms worked in coordination, creating a pattern of strikes that would overwhelm most opponents. Sarah gave ground steadily. She blocked what she could and dodged the rest, but the weight vest slowed her movements. Zixtal's superior strength became obvious as the fight continued. A perfectly timed strike from his lower left arm caught Sarah's shoulder. Off balance from the weight, she could not recover. She fell backward and hit the mat. "Victory to Commander Zixtal," Instructor Vex announced. The Velthari section of the audience cheered. Sarah stood up and removed her weight vest. She showed no signs of frustration or anger. "Good technique," she told Zixtal. "The coordination between your arms is impressive." Zixtal studied her face for signs of deception or mockery. He found none. She genuinely seemed pleased to have learned something from the defeat. "For the speed trial," Zixtal announced, "I choose reaction combat. We respond to random attack signals." "I choose the victory condition," Sarah said. "Best reaction time over 10 attempts wins." The technicians set up a reaction training system. Holographic opponents would appear at random intervals from random directions. The participants had to strike the targets as quickly as possible after they materialized. Zixtal went first. His Velthari reflexes were extraordinary. Target after target appeared and disappeared. tagged by his lightning-fast strikes. His average reaction time was 0.12 seconds. Sarah took her turn. Her movements were smooth but clearly slower. She hit every target, but her average time was 0.21 seconds. Victory to Commander Zixtal, Instructor Vex announced again. More cheers from the Velthari observers. Sarah nodded respectfully to her opponent. Your reflexes are remarkable, she said, much faster than any human could achieve. Zixtal felt satisfied but also puzzled. Sarah seemed genuinely interested in his abilities rather than discouraged by her losses. Most opponents showed frustration or anger by this point. For the tactical trial, Zixtal said, I choose adaptive combat simulation. This was the most complex trial. Both participants would enter a holographic environment that changed randomly every 30 seconds. They had to adapt their fighting styles to new terrain, obstacles, and conditions while trying to defeat each other. I choose the victory condition, Sarah said. First to score 3 touches wins. Time limit? Asked Instructor Vex. No time limit, Sarah replied. Zixtal's confidence flickered slightly. Unlimited time favored endurance over speed. But he was still larger and stronger. They entered the simulation chamber. The environment materialized around them. A rocky canyon with loose stones and narrow ledges. The fight began. Zixtal used his speed and agility to leap between rock formations. His forearms allowed him to climb and strike simultaneously. He pressed his advantage, forcing Sarah to retreat deeper into the canyon. But after 30 seconds, the environment shifted. The canyon became a dense forest with thick trees and low branches. Zixtal's leaping attacks became harder to execute. His forearms, an advantage in open space, kept tangling in vegetation. Sarah adapted immediately. She used trees for cover and concealment. Her smaller size let her move through underbrush that slowed Zixtal down. She scored the first touch with a quick strike as he struggled past a fallen log. The environment changed again. An icy cave with slippery floors and hanging stalactites. Zixtal's natural grace worked against him on the ice. Sarah, who had grown up on a world with winter seasons, moved more confidently on the treacherous surface. She scored the second touch when Zixtal slipped trying to execute a complex four-armed combination. The fourth environment was an underwater scenario. Both fighters moved in slow motion through the liquid medium. Zixtal's strength advantage was reduced by water resistance. Sarah's smaller profile created less drag. Her third touch came as Zixtal struggled to coordinate his forearms in the dense medium. Victory to Cadet Sarah Chen, Instructor Vex announced. The arena erupted in surprised chatter. The human section cheered, but so did many others. They had witnessed something unexpected, a fighter who became more effective as conditions became more challenging. Zixtal floated in the simulated water, staring at Sarah in amazement. She had not just adapted to each environment. She had thrived in them. They exited the simulation chamber. Zixtal removed his helmet and approached Sarah. How? He asked simply. Adaptability, she replied. Humans lived in many different environments on our world. Forests, deserts, mountains, polar regions, islands. We learned to thrive anywhere. But you lost the first 2 trials easily. Yes, in contests that favored your natural advantages. But when the environment became unpredictable, human adaptability became more valuable than Velthari speed or strength. Zixtal considered this. You planned to lose the first 2 trials? I expected to lose them, but I learned from them. Every technique you used in those trials gave me information about your fighting style. When we reached the adaptive trial, I knew how you would react to different situations. You were studying me. I was learning from you. There is a difference. The crowd was dispersing, but many cadets lingered to discuss what they had seen. Zixtal heard fragments of conversation. Did you see how she moved on the ice? Humans are sneaky. She got better as the fight went on. How do they do that? Instructor Vex approached them both. Interesting demonstration, he said. Commander Zixtal, your natural abilities are impressive. Cadet Chen, your adaptability is remarkable. He paused, looking between them. But the most interesting thing was how you both learned from each encounter. That is the mark of true warriors. As they walked toward the exit, Zixtal found himself thinking about Sarah's words. She had treated their entire challenge as a learning experience. Even her defeats had given her valuable information. Sarah, he said, using her first name for the first time. Yes? In the tactical trial, you moved differently in each environment. But your core technique remained the same. How? Sarah smiled. The same teaching smile from their first encounter. Humans have a saying, water takes the shape of its container, but it remains water. We adapt to any situation, but we remember who we are. And who are humans? Learners, she said simply. We are always learning. Zixtal walked beside her in thoughtful silence. His pride had demanded this challenge. His honor had required him to test this strange human who had caught his wrist so easily. But now he realized the challenge had taught him more than it had taught her. Sarah had been learning from him since their first encounter. She had used his own techniques against him, not through trickery, but through understanding. For the first time in his military career, Zixtal wondered if natural advantages were as important as he had always believed. Sarah Chen had shown him that there were other kinds of strength. The question was, what would she teach him next? 3 days after their challenge, Instructor Vex made an announcement that changed everything. The final examination for all senior cadets would be a survival exercise on the abandoned mining planet Zarian 4. You will be dropped in teams of mixed species, Vex explained to the assembled cadets. Your goal is to reach the extraction point 200 kilometers away. You have 1 week. No modern equipment, no communication devices, no orbital support. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Zarian 4 was notorious for its harsh conditions. Toxic storms, radiation zones, and unstable terrain made it one of the most dangerous worlds in the sector. Team assignments are final, Vex continued. Team 7 consists of Commander Zixtal, Cadet Chen, Cadet Thorm of the Krex Republic, and Cadet Wisp of the Zephyrian Collective. Sarah looked across the room at her assigned teammates. Zixtal caught her eye and nodded slightly. Thorm, the massive Krex, was strong enough to punch through metal walls but moved slowly. Wisp could fly but tired quickly in heavy gravity or bad weather. It was a deliberately unbalanced team. The exercise was designed to test how different species could work together, despite their varied strengths and weaknesses. 2 days later, they stood on the loading platform of a military transport ship. Below them, Zarian 4 looked like a wounded world. Brown and gray continents were scarred with mining operations. Toxic yellow clouds swirled through the atmosphere. Drop zone is a plateau near the old mining complex, announced the pilot. Weather forecast shows a radiation storm moving in from the east. You have maybe 6 hours before it hits. The 4 cadets checked their basic equipment. Each had simple clothing suitable for their species, a water container, basic rations for 2 days, and a small emergency kit. Everything else they would have to find or make. 30 seconds to drop, the pilot called. They stood at the edge of the transport bay. Below, the planet's surface rushed up toward them. The drop pods would protect them during landing, but after that they were on their own. Drop. Sarah felt the familiar sensation of falling. Her pod's parachutes deployed automatically, slowing her descent. She hit the ground hard but safely. Around her, 3 other pods landed within a few hundred meters. The landscape was harsh and unwelcoming. Rocky ground stretched in all directions, broken by deep crevices and unstable slopes. The air was thin but breathable. In the distance, the ruins of mining equipment created strange metal sculptures against the gray sky. Zixtal emerged from his pod first. His forearms moved efficiently as he gathered his equipment and scanned their surroundings. Thorm climbed out more slowly, his massive frame making the pod opening seem tiny. Wisp floated gracefully from their pod, testing the planet's gravity with small movements. Team meeting, Sarah called out. They gathered in the shelter of a large boulder. Sarah pulled out a basic map printed on waterproof material. We are here, she said, pointing to a mark on the map. Extraction point is here, 200 kilometers northeast. The most direct route goes through 3 radiation zones and a valley that floods during storm season. I can fly ahead and scout, Wisp offered. Find the safest path. In normal weather, yes, Sarah agreed. But there is a radiation storm coming. Flying in that would be dangerous. Thorm studied the map with his massive hands. I can clear obstacles, move rocks, dig through barriers. Your strength will be very useful, Sarah said, but we need to be smart about when and where to use it. This planet will try to exhaust us. Zixtal looked at the approaching storm clouds. What do you suggest? First, we find shelter for the storm. Then we plan our route based on what resources we can gather. This planet was mined for decades. There might be useful materials in the ruins. They spent the next 2 hours exploring the immediate area. Sarah seemed to have a talent for finding useful items in unexpected places. She discovered a cache of mining tools hidden under a collapsed structure. Wisp's aerial reconnaissance located a cave system that would provide storm shelter. Thorm's strength proved invaluable for moving debris and accessing buried supplies. Zixtal's speed and agility helped him reach high places and navigate unstable terrain. But it was Sarah who found the water. "Here," she called from inside a partially buried building. "Water recycling system. Still functional." The others joined her in the ruins. Ancient pipes led to a collection tank that held several hundred liters of clean water. It was far more than they could carry, but it solved their biggest immediate problem. "How did you know to look here?" Zixtal asked. "Process of elimination. This building has the right size and shape for a water treatment facility." The pipes were a good sign. Mining operations always needed lots of water. The radiation storm hit just as they finished filling their containers. They retreated to the cave Wisp had found and waited. Outside, the wind howled and strange lights flickered through the toxic clouds. 6 hours minimum, Sarah estimated. Maybe 12 if it is a big storm. They settled in for a long wait. Thorm used his strength to block the cave entrance with rocks, creating better protection. Wisp found thermal vents deeper in the cave that provided warmth. Zixtal used his speed to explore the cave system and ensure they were safe. Sarah started a small fire with materials from her emergency kit. In the flickering light, she began working on something with the mining tools they had recovered. "What are you making?" Wisp asked. "Spear points," Sarah replied. "The metal is good quality. We might need weapons. For what? There are no large predators on this planet. Not for hunting. For tools. Digging, cutting, prying. These will be more useful than our hands for most tasks." Zixtal watched her work. Her movements were precise and economical. She shaped each piece of metal with minimal effort but maximum effect. "Where did you learn metalworking?" he asked. "My grandfather. He said humans should know how to make tools from raw materials. You never know when old skills might be useful. Your grandfather taught you many things. All human children learn basic survival skills. How to find water, make fire, build shelter, create tools. We call it camping, but it is really preparation for emergencies." Over the next several hours, Sarah continued working. She created not just spear points but knife blades, digging tools, and even a simple compass using magnetized metal and water. "Impressive," Thorm admitted. "Krek's children learn to fight and work but not to make tools. Velthari receive excellent equipment," Zixtal added. "We do not often need to improvise." "What about your people?" Sarah asked Wisp. "Spherians live in harmony with our environment. We use what nature provides, but we do not change it much." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "Different approaches for different worlds. But here, we need to adapt to conditions we did not evolve for." The storm raged for 14 hours. When it finally passed, they emerged to find the landscape changed. New crevices had opened in the ground. Some of the mining ruins had collapsed completely, but Sarah had used the time well. She had not just made tools. She had studied the map and created a detailed plan for their journey. She had identified water sources, potential shelter sites, and dangerous areas to avoid. Most importantly, she had figured out how to use each team member's abilities most effectively. "Wisp scouts from the air during good weather," she explained. "Thorm clears obstacles and carries heavy loads. Zixtal handles dangerous terrain that requires speed and agility. I coordinate and handle logistics." "What makes you qualified to lead?" Zixtal asked. "Not challenging, just curious." "Nothing," Sarah admitted. "But humans are good at organization and planning. We have been doing it for thousands of years." They began walking northeast toward the extraction point. The journey quickly fell into a rhythm. Wisp would fly ahead to scout the next few kilometers, then return with information. Sarah would analyze the intelligence and plot their course. Thorm would clear any obstacles they could not go around. Zixtal would handle tasks requiring speed or precision, but the real test came on the third day. They were crossing a region of unstable ground when Wisp spotted something troubling from the air. A massive landslide had blocked their planned route. Going around would add 3 days to their journey. They did not have enough supplies for that delay. "We could try to climb over it," Zixtal suggested. "Too dangerous," Wisp reported. "The rocks are still shifting." "I could try to clear a path," Thorm offered. "That would take days," Sarah said, "and might trigger another slide." She studied the obstacle through a pair of improvised binoculars made from salvaged lenses. The landslide was enormous, but she was looking for something else. "There," she said finally, "water flow patterns." The slide blocked a stream. Water is building up behind it, so? Zixtal asked. So we do not go over or around the landslide. We make it move for us. Sarah's plan was ambitious. They would create a controlled water release that would wash away part of the landslide, opening a path through the debris. It required precise timing, careful positioning, and a lot of trust. Thorm used his strength to place explosive charges salvaged from mining equipment. Wisp provided aerial coordination. Zixtal's speed got him to safety points quickly. Sarah calculated water pressure, debris flow, and timing. When they triggered the charges, thousands of tons of water and rock roared down the mountainside. For a terrifying moment, it looked like they had made things worse. Then the debris settled and they saw the result. A narrow but passable route had opened through the landslide. Water still flowed, but it was manageable. How did you know that would work? Thorm. The transport ship carrying Team 7 back to Kepler 7 station received the emergency transmission when they were still 2 hours from docking. Captain Voss, a grizzled veteran with cybernetic implants, rushed to the communication console. This is Admiral Tick commanding the defense fleet. The message crackled through static. Kepler 7 is under attack by unknown hostiles. All Academy ships are ordered to stay clear until the situation is resolved. Sarah and her teammates crowded around the captain. Through the viewports, they could see flashes of light around the distant station. The regular glow of the Academy's lights flickered irregularly. Pirates, Captain Voss said grimly. Has to be. No other explanation for attacking a training facility. What about the cadets still on the station? Sarah asked. Emergency protocols. They will be secured in the lower levels until help arrives. Zixtal studied the tactical display. His military training kicked in automatically. How many ships are attacking? Sensors show at least 6 vessels. Medium cruisers, well armed. They are not trying to destroy the station, just disable it. They want something, Sarah realized. Prisoners, information, or supplies. The transport shuddered as they changed course to a safe distance. On the screen, the battle looked fierce but one-sided. The Academy's defenses were designed to protect against accidents, not military assault. We have to help, Sarah said. Captain Voss shook his head. Orders are to stay clear. We are a transport ship with no weapons and a cargo hold full of cadets. The cadets could be the solution, Sarah insisted. We have trained fighters from dozens of species. Different abilities, different approaches, absolutely not. I will not risk cadet lives. Zixtal stepped forward. Captain, may I see the station blueprints? Why? Sarah is right. We might be able to help, but I need to understand the situation first. Reluctantly, Captain Voss brought up the station schematics. Kepler 7 was a massive structure with multiple levels, docking bays, and defensive systems. The attackers had disabled the main weapons and were focusing on specific sections. They are targeting the computer core and the communication center, Zixtal observed. Classic data theft operation. Sarah studied the layout. What about the maintenance tunnels? Are they too small for the raiders? Most species, yes. But humans? Captain Voss paused, understanding her implication. Humans could move through the service areas undetected. Sarah continued. And we could guide others through the larger passages. It is too dangerous. Captain, Zixtal said formally, I request permission to organize a rescue operation using volunteer cadets. I cannot authorize that. Then, I will take full responsibility as the ranking officer among the, cadets. Sarah looked at him in surprise. Zixtal was risking his career to support her plan. Captain Voss was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the flashes around Kepler 7 continued. If you do this, it is without my knowledge or approval. Understand? Understood. Within an hour, they had organized a strike team of 40 cadets from 8 different species. Each group would use their natural abilities for specific tasks. Zephyrians would provide reconnaissance. Krex would handle heavy assault. Velthari would use speed for hit-and-run attacks, and humans would coordinate everything. Sarah stood before the assembled volunteers in the transport's cargo bay. This is not a military operation, she said clearly. We are cadets, not soldiers. Our goal is to help our fellow students, not win a war. She activated a holographic display of the station. Intelligence suggests 6 raider ships with approximately 200 attackers. They have superior weapons and numbers. We have surprise and knowledge of the station layout. Thorm raised a massive hand. What about the Academy's security forces? Disabled or pinned down in the main sections. We need to reach them and coordinate a counterattack. Wisp fluttered nervously. How do we get aboard without being detected? Sarah smiled. It was the same teaching smile Zixtal had seen before. But now it carried confidence earned through shared trials. We used the waste disposal system. The plan was typically human, complex, risky, and based on using the enemy's expectations against them. The raiders expected resistance from the main entrances and strategic points. They would not expect an attack from the garbage chutes. 3 hours later, Sarah crawled through a narrow maintenance tunnel deep in Kepler-7's lower levels. Behind her, Marcus and Julia followed silently. The tunnel was barely wide enough for human shoulders, too small for most other species. They reached an access port that opened into the main computer core level. Sarah listened carefully before opening the panel. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, raiders searching for valuable data. Sarah activated her communicator, sending a coded signal to the other teams. Phase 1 was beginning. Across the station, 40 cadets moved into position. The Zephyrians had already mapped raider positions from air vents and maintenance shafts. The Krex teams waited near strategic choke points. The Velthari prepared for rapid strikes, and Zixta led a mixed group toward the security center, where Academy personnel were trapped. Sarah's team emerged from the maintenance tunnel in a storage room near the computer core. Through the door, they could hear raiders downloading files from Academy servers. Valuable information about military training, alien technologies, and diplomatic protocols. 3 targets, Julia whispered after peering through a crack in the door, armed with energy weapons, focused on their equipment. Sarah checked her improvised weapon, a modified maintenance tool that could deliver an electrical shock. Not lethal, but effective for stunning opponents. On my signal, she whispered. She opened the door and rolled into the corridor. The raiders turned in surprise, but Sarah was already moving. Her shock weapon caught the first raider before he could draw his sidearm. Julia and Marcus followed, using techniques Sarah had taught them to disable the other 2 quickly and quietly. Phase 1 complete, Sarah reported over her communicator. Computer core secured. Similar reports came from around the station. The cadets were inside and moving according to plan. But the real test was just beginning. Zixtal's team had reached the security center but found it heavily defended. 20 raiders with military-grade weapons controlled the main approach. A direct assault would be suicide. Sarah, he called over the communicator. I need options. Environmental systems, she replied immediately. Cut power to their section. Use darkness and confusion. How? Maintenance level 3, section C7. There should be a power distribution panel. Zixtal detailed 2 of his Velthari teammates to find the panel. Their natural speed and agility made them ideal for this mission. Within minutes, the lights went out in the security center. In the darkness, Zixtal led his mixed team forward. Krex strength punched through improvised barriers. Zephyrian flight allowed attacks from unexpected angles. Velthari speed created confusion among the defenders, but it was human tactics that made the assault succeed. Sarah had anticipated how the raiders would react to each move and positioned the cadets accordingly. The security center fell within 15 minutes. Phase 2 complete, Zixtal reported. Academy security forces are free and armed. The battle shifted as trained security personnel joined the cadet teams. But the raiders were professionals too. They regrouped quickly and began fighting back with organized tactics. Sarah found herself in the station's communications center, trying to restore contact with the defense fleet. Around her, the battle raged through corridors and chambers. Emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls. Sarah. Zixtal's voice over the communicator was tense. Raiders are retreating to their ships, but they are taking hostages. Civilian staff from the lower levels. Sarah's blood went cold. The raiders were cutting their losses and preparing to escape with valuable prisoners. Where? Docking Bay 7. 6 ships, maybe 50 hostages. Security forces? Pinned down by defensive positions. The raiders have good cover and clear firing lanes. Sarah looked at the communication panel she had been working on. She was close to restoring contact with the fleet, but it would take another 10 minutes. The hostages did not have 10 minutes. All teams, this is Sarah, she announced over the communicator. New priority, Docking Bay 7. We need to save those people. Sarah, Zixtal's voice was careful. The raiders have superior position and firepower. A direct assault will fail. Then we do not assault directly. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. The docking bay was a large open space with limited cover. The raiders had chosen their position well. Any conventional attack would result in disaster. But humans did not always think conventionally. Atmospheric systems, she said suddenly. Docking bays have independent life support for ship operations. What are you thinking? If we can control the atmosphere in Bay 7, we can create conditions that favor us over the raiders. It was another typically human plan. Turn the environment itself into a weapon. Sarah guided teams through the station's engineering sections, showing them how to modify atmospheric controls. 20 minutes later, the air in Docking Bay 7 became very interesting.